Talking to people about their porn habits was never a career goal of mine. I stumbled into this starting with a one-woman comedy show about sex, followed by some frank conversation with fraternity brothers, and encouraged them to develop communication skills and get them some key information so that they could enjoy sex until old age. Now kids look and say, who's the old regular lady talking about sex up there? And some of them think, oh, maybe when she was young, she was like this hot, sassy lassie who dissolved into this situation you see before you. And I assure them that is not the case, that I've been rockin' regular my whole life. And if I can land on my feet, anyone can.
Dartmouth College has always had a male-dominated social scene. Fraternities entirely dominate nightlife. While sororities represent a strong community of women on this campus as well, parties are thrown at the frats, drinking happens at the frats, and because of this, most sexual relationships have their origin in the frats. This inevitably results in a gendered power dynamic when it comes to hookups at Dartmouth. Do you feel that you are valued in your sexual relationships at Dartmouth?
Yeah, I'd probably say no. Yeah, no.
Absolutely not. I did not think so. I've never had someone be like, hey, like, what would you like? What would make you happy in this type of, situation?
Yeah, no, I don't feel like I'm valued in sexual encounters here.
All genders have a role to play in a hookup scenario, but I think we've constructed this environment where females are more submersive sometimes.
Men should know like what it is that pleases a woman, and I think that doesn't happen here. And I'm honestly not sure if it's just here or other places, but I do think that so much of the hookup culture is what the man wants and less of what the woman wants.
With men, it's just like, let me get my nut and I'm out.
It's obvious that frat brothers here recognize this power disparity, are working to understand it, and actively try and combat it. One way Dartmouth frats are trying to make hookup culture healthier for women on this campus is by engaging in conversations about sex, consent, and how to correct misconceptions regarding hookups and relationships. This term, 3 fraternities invited comedian and educator Cindy Pierce to their houses to speak with brothers about these very topics. Cindy is no stranger to Dartmouth. She's been coming to campus for over 15 years, starting when her niece and nephew were undergrads here. A couple of weeks ago, we got the chance to sit down with Cindy and ask her about the talk she gave to our male classmates. We also talked with 3 Dartmouth students, a member of TDX, a member of Beta, and a member of BG to see what they learned.
I went to my niece's sorority, a little alarmed by the lack of knowledge about female pleasure among women. I thought, goodness, this must be an exception. And then I went to a group of seniors and juniors in a fraternity, their senior year, like my nephew's senior year, and I did a talk for an hour, and I took questions for 2 hours. And those questions were really alarming. I thought, well, maybe these 10-week terms are really putting Dartmouth students at a disadvantage. Like, they don't have time to use the internet in a positive way. So I went around to other colleges, and it turns out because of the internet and despite the internet, people are less knowledgeable because there's too much information out there, and porn is the #1 sexuality educator.
One thing she kind of touched on was pornography and how that creates such a false image of what sex and hookups is really like, and kind of the power dynamic of porn is very male dominated and not really real, and not really how things usually look in real life.
Boys are the most common age they're seeing porn is about 9 years old, and that's what they're clinging to. They're like, this is how sex is. Anal sex and hitting her across the face and tying her up, and people are so off track because of porn. I speak about porn, hookup culture, consent, social media, and how all of those things are interrelated.
There were a lot of things that she said, I mean, she might as well have been holding up like a diagram of like a vagina so that, and pointing to the clitoris and all this stuff. I mean, there wasn't literally one there, but you know.
We're so whacked about female pleasure. We don't teach pleasure education. So while it seems very heteronormative for me to talk about female pleasure, even women who sleep with women don't always have it figured out. The expectation is that everyone loves hookup culture, but that's just not the case. That it's the below average sex that is so rampant on this campus and every campus in high school and beyond in Tinder world. The below average sex people are tolerating just unnerves me.
One of the first things she said, which everyone found super funny, was she was like, all right, I'm here to talk to you guys about sex, and you guys are all having bad sex. It's very below par. And we were like, okay, like, firstly, how do you know that?
So many people are just like, you gotta do it, and you just keep doing it, it's gonna get better. So people crave intimacy. They're hoping these hookups eventually convert to something special, but too scared to be vulnerable.
She mentioned having, one of the big takeaways was actually having a sober monitor on some nights, just to make sure that everything is safe, especially with the women who are in the house. And that was something that we hadn't done before, and something that people have started volunteering to be sober monitor for nights.
What has been most interesting to me is reading the accounts of sober monitors, particularly male members of fraternities across this country who have been part of the scene, partying. When you're partying, you're not paying attention. And then when you're on duty and watching some of your best friends, the way they behave under the influence of alcohol, being sober throughout the night and watching the dynamics, that is powerful. Every generation of women, I can't tell you how many have the same questions over and over, like, why do guys do this and why do guys do that? And will you talk to these fraternities? And I don't hear the guys saying, will you talk to the women about this? They're just like, can you help us out?
But when you come to college, you're kind of expected to know what to do and how to act in those situations.
I think some of the crappiest sex is in the heterosexual dynamic, where this has not changed. Women say to me, I would tell him if he asked me, but I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to question his masculinity.
Everyone's afraid to ask, and communication usually lacks.
The men say, I would love to know what women like, but I can't ask because I'm supposed to know. By the time guys are like 17, they're like, it's Google and porn, and I'm gonna just rummage around and figure out what gives her pleasure. And I say to those guys, you could be rummaging for the next 6 decades of your life.
There's not really like platforms for guys to talk about this stuff.
A lot of women on this campus say, I have all these great friends, and they're awesome guy friends, and then they join a fraternity and they're a different person in that context.
The Greek system really de-emphasizes friendships with people of the opposite sex. As a fraternity, we have tons of events, whether it be during the day, every hour of the day, every hour of the night, every day of the week. We often have things where we just hang out with just the brothers, and it's at the house, and there's never really any women there. And then we get really close. We come to kind of belong in the house and really think of it as our space and feel really comfortable there. And then a few times a week, if the sun goes down and past 11 o'clock, we decide to invite girls over. Immediately we belong already because we spend so much time there, and our guests, who are oftentimes women, don't. And that's one thing Cindy talked about, is how important it is to have friends who are girls. Just for your own well-being, I think it's a really good thing to befriend as many different types of people as you can. I think being able to have not have all of your relationships with girls be sexual or romantic. One thing we can all do to help that is, instead of kind of creating a culture where every time girls are at the house, it's for the purpose of hooking up or the purpose of a sexual romantic relationship, but just kind of seeing it as another time to hang out, another time to make friends. As
it went on, like, people were like, this is really cool, and asked a bunch of questions. Yeah, like, having good sex is great, and like, if that's one of her goals, then like, awesome. But I feel like it's really on us, because like, now that we know that, it's like up to us.
The bar is high, and they are rising up. Each year I see the younger members striving for more, holding their brothers accountable, trying to help change the vibe. And when I meet the individuals, I feel optimistic.
Yeah.
way. Now, one thing I talk to women about is what I call compliance training, that we tell women, like, own your sexuality, be assertive, speak your mind, but we also say don't be a bitch and be physically strong, but stay skinny, be nice. We still are telling women to be nice. We give mixed message, like assert, but not too much. We can be nice people, but we have to also be ready to be fierce and be ready to disappoint, ready to be mean and not apologize, take up space. That needs to be happening. So this false empowerment I hear from women, talking about like, I own my sexuality, I can hook up with whoever I want, I can send nude pictures because I own it. And I'm like, good for you, tell me about that owning. And almost always it's people think I'm a sexual badass and I am giving pleasure to male partners. Badassery is when you know where your clitoris is, you decide when and if you're going to have an orgasm, you guide your partner and you can speak about it. That's empowerment, like sexual empowerment. But don't tell me randomly hooking up, faking orgasms, and giving pleasure to others is empowering. So I think sexual equality and is all about gender equality and respect. I didn't own the word feminist till I was older. It took me a while to own that word. And now I don't just own it, I'm like waving the flag.
Or likely having like bad experiences. So